Hi, I'm Naomi Tucker, your productivity burnout and leadership coach, empowering you to live your life on purpose. Today, I wanted to talk to you about 5 things that leaders should know when creating boundaries or about boundaries. So, are you a leader that wants extraordinary results, but other people's agendas get in the way? Or perhaps you have been a pace setter in your business, but you're still searching for your purpose so that you can set your own pace. Or maybe you find it hard to delegate because it takes too long to explain it, so you might as well do it anyway. Well, if you relate to any of these, then you're not alone. We all experience exasperation when it comes to the lack of boundaries that is in our lives. And sometimes it's difficult to implement those boundaries. But what if I would say that I would tell you that implementing boundaries can be exactly what you need in order to move the needle forward in all of these areas. So, today I'm going to be giving you 5 things that you should know about boundaries. And these insights are going to help you to become a more effective and a more productive leader. Are you ready? Great. So, tip number 1, always remember the following. And this is such an amazing quote by Dr. Henry Cloud. You always create what you allow. Now, that is such a sobering notion as a leader that you create what you allow. The environments that you see on your team currently, in divisions and in departments, it's probably because whoever the head of those divisions, and if that's you, you created this environment as a leader. So that comes to the culture, it comes to how the teams respond, it comes down to the work ethic. This is something that has been allowed and or created. And as a leader, you have an amazing amount of control around what that is. You are in charge of all aspects of your team. And that can be super empowering. So just know that you have to wield this power in a way that's going to best support your teams. So I encourage you to do that. And really remember, you always get what you create and what you allow. Tip number 2, understand when boundaries are needed, because that is the first step, is understanding when on your teams that you need to put boundaries in place. And in order to do that, there are going to be certain warning signs. Now, these signs are going to help you realize, oh, perhaps I need to put a boundary in place in regards to that. Some of these types of warning signs are poor performance. You have someone that's performing poorly on your team, not focused, negative thinking, a lot of negative thinking, negative talk that can be very toxic for your team. Lack of results, just over and over again producing not good enough results. The imbalance of power, and that can be a little bit tricky, is there's different power struggles that are happening on the team, and it's not healthy for the team. They don't know who to go to for certain things, for certain questions. That probably means that there are some boundaries that are needed in that particular situation. Lack of control, no celebrations. That's something that is a culture creator, creating celebrations over those milestones and those big wins that you have on your team. Also, low morale. That's another thing that we could create some boundaries around so that we are best supporting our teams to make sure that they are feeling the best that they can when they are performing the work that they're doing for the company. So, those are just some brief areas of warning signs. I'm pretty sure as I really talk through those, you can think about others for yourself and for your team. So make sure to jot those down and really take a reflection on it and see where you can actually implement some boundaries in those areas. Tip number 3, the areas of boundaries is something you want to consider when you're thinking about creating boundaries. So there's different areas that you can focus on when it comes to creating healthy boundaries. Some of those are very, very important, and one in particular is super important. So I would like to call your attention to these different areas that we can set as leaders, these boundaries in our team. The number one is vision. focus, attention. So where your team is putting their vision on, where they're focusing on, and where their attention is an area that, as a leader, you can actually create for them and help them to narrow their focus, so they're focusing on the vision that you have or that an organization has. That's number one. Another one is the emotional, having boundaries around certain emotions that are done on your team and the people that you work with. There's certain emotions that we should be sharing in the business environment, and there's certain emotions that we probably don't want to share. So if you're seeing that that emotional area on your team is always being violated, definitely set up some boundaries in regards to that. Unity and connection. We want to make sure everyone's feeling good about where they work, feeling good about what they're doing. They're connected to everyone. If your teams aren't feeling that, then as a leader, you have the amazing opportunity to create that connection for them. Definitely think about that and how you can create connection with your team members. Also, thinking and beliefs. What your teams think and what they believe about the company or about you as a leader is very important. So, continue to give them that positive messaging and give them the visions that you need for them to see so that they can really steer their work in that direction. And then also control and empowerment is another awesome one. Performance and development also is another one. If you don't have those tools in place in order to steer performance, steer development within your team, we want to make sure that we put those in place so everyone knows how they can move the needle forward when it comes to their individual work. And then lastly, I wanted to, this is the most important one, is yourself. Definitely have some boundaries around you. There are certain things that, there are certain limits that you have as a leader, and you want to protect yourself by putting boundaries around those things. Boundaries shouldn't be looked at as something that is restrictive. It definitely is something as an opportunity for you to put some just put some things in place so that you are protecting yourself. I guess you could say is some protection that you can place around yourself so that you are really making sure that you show up strong and show up with the ultimate goal for making sure that you're leading your team in the way that they need and need of you. Right. So, tip number 4, remember to attend, exhibit, and remember. So, you might be saying, Naomi, what are you talking about? To attend, to exhibit, and to remember. But this is so important. As leaders, we're called to show up, to attend the vision. You have to give your teams the vision, the goal, and the challenges that they're going to walk through on a daily basis. And you need to show up and you need to be there for them so that they can see you and see and hear what they're working towards every day. We're called to make sure that we inhibit the behaviors or the actions that shouldn't take place. So, again, if you're setting up those boundaries, you see those warning signs, you set up your boundaries. When you see someone come across those boundaries and they cross the line, you definitely need to make sure that you recall exactly what boundary was put in place and really get everyone back in line, because you want to make sure that you're creating a safe place for all of your team members. So if there are certain boundaries that are set up for a certain thing, then everyone feels safe that they can operate within that. As soon as one team member goes outside of that, it's a responsibility for the leader to really get it back in place. Okay. And then for remembering, what that means is making sure that the team always knows the goals that are supposed to be placed in front of them. So if you have quarterly goals, if you have yearly goals, making sure that you're always putting those goals in front of them, doing a review of those so that they have a consistent vision of what they're going to work on and what they're going to achieve. And I will just say, make sure that those goals are easy to understand, that everybody is aligned to what the ultimate vision is, so that they definitely are marching in step with you when it comes to those goals. Tip number 5, make sure to create emotional connections and empowerment. Now, as a leader, it's important for you to be creating those emotional boundaries, which we talked about for your team, but then understanding that having a positive emotional climate is really helpful and it's essential for leaders. And the reason why is because it's been proven that positivity has like a direct impact on your team's results. So you definitely want to do that. If there's anyone that just feels that smarts can get you through, that is absolutely not true, because you're going to have smarts as a leader, but then you also need to have a positive attitude, because a negative attitude can damage your team way more than smarts could ever do. So I just would like for you to understand that you have two essential components of your brain. You have your upper brain and you have your lower brain. So your lower brain is typically your fight, your flight, and your freeze area of the brain. And there's also your upper brain that really goes through logic and judgment and reason. And we're more creative and can solve problems better tapping into our upper brain. And it's as a leader, it's important for us to know this, because then we can put boundaries around it all, because we know that our teams crave control. It's really in all of our brains to crave that control. But when a leader understands this, they can definitely give that sense of connectedness, that sense of control, and then that helps empower your teams to do the best that they can and be put in a position that allows them to thrive. So really essentially it's just connecting that upper brain and lower brain so that they're able to definitely thrive. And leaders, when they know that people operate their best when in this type of situation, leaders are going to always be giving their teams that opportunity to really shine in these areas. So those were my 5 tips, but I do have one bonus tip for you. And it's, when it comes to boundaries, don't forget about yourself. In leadership, typically there's this concept that leaders eat last. However, it's so important that we're paying attention to others and that we are helping your team and helping them meet their goals. And but we want to not forget about ourselves when we do that. Even though that's important, we don't want to forget about ourselves. When leading, we don't want to be led or limited by our fears. We want to grow past that fear and make decisions that need to be made for our team. So we need to find out what drains us so that we can redirect our energy into more productive places. So definitely make sure that you understand you understand who you are. There are certain people that, let's say, could drain you. There are certain people that uplift you when it comes to leadership in your team. Make sure you have a really good balance of what that is, and make sure that you create the boundaries that you need so that you can show up fully for your team. All right. So finally, I just want to give you my personal book recommendation on boundaries. We've read this book before in our book club, and I just cannot talk about it enough. The book is called Boundaries by Henry Cloud, and I can't even begin to say how many good things about this book and how much it really talks about a good team, how a good team can perform, and how leaders can really set amazing boundaries that's needed in order for them to thrive and be their best. So I hope you pick up this book, and I also hope that you take a look at our book club event, and I'll link that in the description below for you to reference. So listen, setting boundaries, as we know, is really important. I want you to get it right. And the first step with creating boundaries for your team should be really streamlining things to what's important for you, what's important for your team, and in designing an environment which all of these areas of importance are represented. And you can do that with my guide that I created as my gift to you. It's called the Simplify Your Life Guide. And I will link that guide right in the description. All you have to do is just enter your email, and that will be delivered directly to your inbox. And you'll be on your way to creating a team style and a lifestyle that works for you and that you can be happy with, and it is supported by the boundaries that you're going to set for you and your team. That's all I had for today. Thank you so very much. And until next time, stay on purpose.